Welcome to this week's episode. In this one, I sit down with my uncle Jay Liska, a true snowboarder to his core. You can hear it in his voice and the words he uses. He started snowboarding back in the early 80s, before high backs and when snowboard companies were still trying to figure out what the hell a snowboard actually looked like. Jay was one of Alaska's first professional snowboarders with his own pro model. He also started Boarderline along with my dad, Scott Liska. For those not familiar with Boarderline, it was an Alaskan snowboard and skateboard shop that really pushed the Alaska snow and skate scene in the late 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Jay would eventually part ways with Boarderline and start his own shop, Northern Border, which also had a big impact on the Alaska snow and skate scene. Okay, the Crude Company men. Shout out to Trina Duber, Seward Brewing Company, David North, Crystal Liska, Derek Adolph, Blue and Gold Board Shop, Shane Robinson, and Sharon Liska. Thank you all for your support. This podcast wouldn't be possible without you. I also want to thank everyone from those old Boarderline and Northern Border days. I was going through the Crude Patreon subscribers today and realized that more than half are people I know from back in those days. A lot of you don't know me as a journalist. You know me as the snowboarder I used to be. So I think it's really awesome that so many of you have subscribed at all different levels. Thank you. I really appreciate all the patrons for supporting me in this endeavor. I mentioned the Crude Patreon a second ago, so I'll give you the quick spiel now. Patreon is how this podcast is able to keep going, so if you enjoy listening to Crude Conversations, consider subscribing at www.patreon.com/Crude Magazine. Okay, back to the man of the hour, Jay Liska. If you've never met Jay, one thing you should know about him is he's a storyteller. Whether he's telling you about the newest Frankenstein machine he put together that week, or reminiscing about what the Alaska snowboard scene was like back in the day, he's got plenty of stories. So let's just get into it. Here's Jay Liska. Mic is hot.
Mic's hot?
Mic's hot.
Is it recording?
It's record. That's what that means, dude.
Crude Conversations. Listen more, then you talk.
Go to work!
Okay.
Yeah, you look like a professional there at Christmas, I tell you what.
Was I just shooting the moon?
I was like, wow. I was like, wow, these kids, young kids, and you three boys.
Who, me, Colton, and Austin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys were tearing it up. I was like, wow, what's going on?
Well, we got the snow machine, we got the sled, we had...
Oh, yeah, we were sledding, and we were tearing it up. And I was like, oh, geez, these guys are professionals. And then you clean the house.
Oh, we cleaned the house too, huh?
Of beer.
Oh, clean the house of beer. I thought you meant, I was trying to remember. I'm like, holy shit, we cleaned the house? That's
No,
sick.
he didn't. You left a mess.
They're never invited over again.
No, I thought it was great. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was fun. I had a lot of fun. Yeah, we need to do that again. So welcome to the podcast, Jay.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So, dude, it dumped this week.
It did.
You run the tow rope at your snowboard park at all?
No, I didn't even plow the driveway. I was thinking about taking a couple snow skate runs on the driveway because I got this little bank going there. It's kind of drifted. The wind blew and stuff. But no, not yet. You know, it needs a little more mow skiing. And
Can you explain the mow ski to me?
the mow ski, you get a lawnmower and you cut the front out of it, like the front between the two wheels. And then you put it on skis, and then you can mow the alders in your snowboard park or whatever. It's kind of like, not like mowing lawn, but you just mow brush and everything else in the winter. Mow ski.
Where'd you come up with this idea?
Well, you know, YouTube redneck. Everybody is doing it, you know. Everybody's doing it.
Everybody's doing the mow ski?
They are. Well, all the rednecks got a mower where they can cut trees and alders, but I think I'm the only redneck with one on skis. Everybody.
Okay, so for the listeners who might not be familiar with your park, your snowboard park, ski park, snowboard park out in your front yard at your house. What's it all about?
Well, I got a little bit of property up there, and I grew up on rope tows, when like 70s and 80s on the east side, there was Russian Jack had a rope tow, costed $1. Centennial had a rope tow, costed $1.
Centennial Park and
Russian Jack Park. And we'd go there every night and ski. We wouldn't even pay. We just show up. We're locals, and just go for free and free seasons pass. And so we grew up on that. And then when I built the house, and we started with a Puma, Arctic Cat Puma, and we would just tow each other up and down the driveway. And then that turned into, I bought the rope and the truck, and a lot of people donated their front boxes, like Matt Wild. A lot of the boxes are Matt Wild's, and Timbo from the
Tim Davis.
Yeah. From what's that church? Church by the Sea.
I think it's Church by the Sea, isn't it?
Church by the Sea. Yeah. That flat bar, that's the one from the Church by the Sea.
Really? Okay.
Everybody, all the
down there by you could see Cook Inlet and everything from that spot.
Yeah. I mean, when the kids grow up, and they would donate charity to the Northern Slope. Here, I got to move these rails. Get rid of them. Here you go. You can have them. So that's all kind of a collaborations of everybody's. I have the flat down flat from Indo. It's there in the woods.
The Indo skate park that
it's
that
a
Boarderline
flat
had.
down. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have the flat down rail. So we hit that sometimes.
That is rad. And you still snowboard up there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you get so old, you need a soft landing. So if you're going to, jib your stick and butter your muffin, you want a fresh landing. and it's pretty hard to do at the resort because it's just bulletproof packed. And so I can, one guy out catching all the waves and jibbing the park. I'm run it and invite a few of my bros up, and we'll do some jibbing.
That is so rad, dude.
Don't get better than one guy out.
Yeah, one guy out. So when did you first start snowboarding?
I was thinking about that. When you texted me about this podcast thing, I was all like, I watched that 200 minutes of 1990 DVD you had dubbed over from my VHS.
Yeah.
Well, it says 100 minutes on one and 116 on the other. I watched literally the 200 minutes, and I started thinking about that. I'm like, I had 4 or 5 snowboards before that, and I was like, okay, and then.
And this was like 1990, was it? Because it was a VHS that I had made into a couple DVDs for you, right?
Yeah.
And so the timestamp on the bottom of that was what, 1990?
It says 1990, and
okay.
I'm not sure if it was 90 or 89, but I was like, man, I had 5 snowboards before that because I used to break them in half and cut a little V-tail on him and give him to Jake, your brother. I'd give him half a snowboard. Here's half a snowboard, and he started out riding that. But to answer your question, probably about 83, me and my friend from the trailer park, trailer trash. You don't realize that when you're trailer trash. It's only later when you grow up you realize that, oh man, I was trailer trash. But anyways, he knew a guy, Brad Puckett, that worked at New Frontier Sports that Rick Malone owned, and it was right next to Pickle Barrel Deli by East High School. And Brad worked there, and Rick owned it, New Frontier Sports, and Brad would tell us, hey, just come in around 11 or noon, and whatever boards didn't rent out, you can take them out and ride them. And we'd show up at 11 or noon, me and Tiger. And
your buddy Tiger?
Yeah, Tiger riding her from the trailer park,
Okay.
And we were riding swing bows and barfoots and whatever they had. We just rode whatever we like. he'd let us take a board out and we'd ride it and bring it back. It was probably about 83. I don't know.
That's crazy. And you're riding them here in Anchorage, just around.
Mostly Arctic Valley.
Okay, mostly Arctic Valley.
Hiking Arctic Valley, they wouldn't let you at the resort or anything like that. And, just mostly Arctic Valley, really.
They weren't letting snowboarders at the resort at this time?
No, there was maybe a handful of snowboarders, and they weren't letting you on the ski lift.
And that would have been the military side, right? So there was the left side, which was the tow rope, and then you had the right side, which was that actually had the chairlift.
No, well, Arctic Valley is over here. They wouldn't let you on any of that. We had to go up in the gullies to the left.
Okay.
If you're looking at Arctic Valley, it would be Looker's left. So we were riding those gullies and just up in there, just hiking and making pow turns and free ride.
What was that first day like when you first had a snowboard and you're first able to kind of strap in and learn to ride it? I mean, because you've been snowboarding for a long time.
Yeah. 83 to 2019. I don't know. I don't really remember the first days. I think it was really difficult because if the snowboards were not that great and there was a lot of crazy technology going on, a swing bow was, I don't know, you can Google that. It was kind of a crazy 2 skis on a platform thing, and barfoots were pretty good. And
could you explain a barfoot?
Barfoot was just a brand name, Chuck Barfoot from back in the day. His boards worked pretty good. He had good bindings, and it really came down to maybe the equipment, how good a day you had. But I can't really remember the first day I snowboarded, and because you might not have got that rad sensation of doing it, like killing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember when I got my first snowboard, and it was good. And I remember killing it on that thing. I would just hike up there. I had a pit bull with a harness, and he just towed the snowboard up. And, I guess I'll say that part of I'd strap a 12-pack of beer between the bindings of the snowboard.
Yeah.
And the pit bull would pull the board and the snowboard up, and I just walk up drinking beer and then take some runs.
Doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, well, unless the dog runs out in front of it and you cut his leg open with your board. Did that before too, but yeah, that's how everybody knew. Oh, there's Jay, because there'd be a dog pulling a board behind him. There was only 20 of us, and everybody knew each other. So
yeah, it was a small scene back then.
Yeah, like that footage of that half pipe stuff at Arctic Valley.
Yeah,
in that video, that was literally all the snowboarders in Alaska or in Anchorage Bowl, except for maybe Tito Ramos. He was there in the morning. There's no footage of Tito in that.
He was there in the morning, though?
Yeah, he plowed that or helped build that whole thing, and he had to leave. But he was there in the morning, but literally everybody else, Juan and Bill Kozlowski and Darren. Mattingly was there, and Carl Middlestat, and I mean, that was all the snowboarders in the Anchorage Bowl.
Yeah.
That video, 1990, that was it.
That's crazy. What was it like growing up in the snowboard culture when it was just a bunch of buddies? Like, you guys all knew about each other. You knew that you'd be at either the same spots or, you'd see each other, weekly. It's not really like that anymore.
It was pretty good. I mean, we all knew each other. We know, boom, we're going to go here, we're going to do that. And then there was some hierarchy in the crew. And, but you really, I looked up to Tito, and you always wanted to progress or excel, and you had to find it somewhere. There was no, where are you going to find it in 1984? Who's going to teach you all this stuff? You're going to learn it on your own, or you got to find somebody. So it was good. It was like really learning, and and you'd see somebody do something, and he's like, "Oh, I gotta do that," and it was pretty dope.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So you were the first Alaskan snowboarder to have his own pro model, right?
Yeah.
What was that like? And actually, who was it with?
Well, the company they were leasing the name Mistral Snowboards, and then I don't know if Mistral wanted more money or what, but they broke that agreement and they started Generic Snowboards, and then my pro model was on Generic Snowboards, and I think of those times. It was incredible. Everybody wants the free ride powder. If I asked you, do you want to go free ride powder or you want to jib traffic cones, and you want to go ride in a helicopter or you want to go down to Buttress Hill downtown, I want to go in the helicopter and ride POW.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we did. I had a pro model. We'd go to Valdez. We would ride POW. You get in a beaver, 8 of your bros fly up, land, and it was incredible. I don't know. I mean, all parts of snowboarding are cool, but
to have that freedom like you guys had back then must have been pretty amazing.
Yeah, no guides. Nobody tell you what to do. Cliffs are big and powder's good. And it was, Valdez was like the North Shore of snowboarding. And we went there and would stay there for months and just crush it. And they had airplanes and helicopters and no guides, nobody to tell you what to do. It was maybe don't appreciate it so much at the time, but now I look back on it, I'm like, man, we had it made. It was so good.
Yeah, that's what pretty recently within the last couple of years, I was driving out to Seward with my dad, and we were driving past a couple mountains, and he's like, oh yeah, back in the day we hit that. It's crazy to think about now, because to have a helicopter drop you off on some random peak is like unheard of now. You as the rider can't be like, I want to go to that mountain over there, just randomly. It's not going to happen. They have their set kind of agenda to bring you to, depending on like your skill level. So I guess based on that, do you have a line or a run that maybe sticks out in your mind that you're like, nobody's ever done that?
Yeah, and that's funny you say that, because I always think of this one. We're in the pass, Thompson's Pass, and end of the day, sun's been baking all day, whatever, late April, and it was me, Richie Fowler, Farmer, Nick Parada, and Adam Yauch from the Beastie Boys. We all pile in the beaver, and we want to land on Hog's Back and take a run off Hog's Back, and somebody pick us up to bring us back to town. Hog's Back is that big chute you see when you drive to town right before Keystone Canyon, where that avalanche came down and like closed the town off for like multiple months, like a couple years ago.
Valdez, right?
In Valdez?
Yeah.
That's Hog's Back right there. And we're like, we want to land on Hog's Back and do it. And, we're like, okay. The pilot's like, all right, let's do it. Boom, we get in the beaver, land on top. And there's one chute, and it comes down, and then there's a flat glacier, a hanging glacier, and you got to cross that to come over this face where you can come down and get to the road. And we got up there on top, and there's a small wind lip, just like maybe about 100 feet down the chute. The chute is steep. And we're like, okay, let's do this. And we, I think Richie hit it first, or maybe it was Farm, I don't know. And somebody hit that, like just putting off this wind lip, and, got like 100-foot air. We're like, oh yeah. And there's an incredible wind lip on the top of that chute of Hog's Back. It just put off that, you'll get a nice air. And then you got to blaze down, cross that hanging glacier, and then you drop in on this face, and it's been getting cooked all day. We're talking 7, 8 o'clock at night in April. It's been getting cooked all day. And I'm kind of coaching Adam Yauch from the Beastie Boys, because he'll dislocate his shoulder and he's a little leery of that. And we run about halfway down this slope and we end up in this like bottleneck icy thing. And he's like, and I jump through this little bottleneck thing. And he's like, I'm going to take my board off. I don't want to dislocate my shoulder. And I'm like, no, don't take your board off. Just jump it. And he's like, no, I don't. And I look over and Farm's coming down. And he goes down and there's this big avalanche like following him. And he's just like killing it, getting pitted. And I'm like, we got to get out of here. Let's go. And Youch's like, oh, no, I got to take my board off. I'm like, whatever you do, hurry up. We can't hang out here. And he jumped down. He rode a grocer, a 180. And I was all like, dude, and we got him off the mountain. But yeah, that's a memorable run.
That's pretty crazy. And Beastie Boys were huge. I mean, they're still huge, but they were like, that was their time.
Yeah, he was in the snowboard movie and everything. We were filming for some movie.
Yeah.
Not at that run, but he made it in the movie.
So did you feel some responsibility, like, to get him out of there safe?
Yeah, sometimes I have to, like, not mentor, but regulate some of the individuals and the things and, because people can get pretty crazy sometimes.
You never got crazy?
Well, I get crazy too, but people can get rubbed the wrong way and like think. I think somebody wanted to fight with Adam, and I had to calm that down a little bit. I calmed a few people down in my day. Yeah, I think you don't fight with Adam Yauch from the Beastie Boys.
Yeah, definitely not. Was that what you told the person? Like, you can't fight with Adam?
No, I don't remember what I said. I think I calmed the situation quickly.
Jay the Cooler. So, you were in a helicopter crash, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we would go over to Mount Spurr in the summer, and we king salmon fish on the river, on the Chewett River, and that's a good little story. I love stories. I just love stories. So I'll start with that story. So we're down fishing on the creek, on the Chewett River, the Mosquito Rabbit Hole, we called it, because if you went into the woods, it was the mosquitoes would get you. Your dad was there too. He came in and got some of that too, and I would happen to be sponsored by, at the time, Warsteiner. My good buddy Ilya Pekich owned Inlet Distributing. He was like my first sponsor. Ilya, love ya. And so I had gotten, I don't know, Ilya gave me like a pallet of beer or something, and I don't know how many cases we got out to the Mosquito Rabbit Hole, but it was me and Nick and Farmer and Richie and Pat Solomon was the filmer dude, and maybe somebody was there from Transworld. Oh, Peter Stein was there. I think he was writing a story for Transworld. Yeah, I think Pete was there too. And so we show up, and on this little riverbank, they fly us in a helicopter, we land, get all our camp gear out, and I don't know how many, like I said, how many cases of beer, but there's the river, and there's a little creek, and we set our tents up here, and like, oh, let's put all the beer in the creek. That'll be great. And, keep the beer cold. We'll be stoked. And first night, starts raining. And I don't know, somebody got up to take a piss, and they're like, hey, the river came up. Hey, all the beer's floating away, get up. And we all get up, and we're trying to, it's clink, 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 down this creek, and we're like, grab the beer. And we grabbed like as much as we could, and we probably lost some. And then,
were you guys jumping in the river?
No, like there's the river and then a small creek, like, high water, if the rain came up, it flows over here too. Okay. That's where we stored our beer, was in that tiny little
cove,
little creek on the side of the river.
Okay.
And so we collected up as much beer as we could, and then when you're young, you are not very smart, and and so we're fishing, we're catching kings, and it was just a blast, and we're just killing it. And, then they're like, oh, we're coming to get you on X day, on, we'll just say Thursday. We're like, okay, and this is the dumb part. And so on Thursday, we're like, oh, they're coming to get us. And all like, so we like drank all the water and ate most of the food, and they didn't show up for 2 days. And we're like, and so the first day, like, they didn't show up, and we're like, oh man, we're boiling the mosquito rapid hole Giardia thing and pouring it through coffee filters, and it's still kind of brown, and we're like trying to drink that, and we're like, oh, and we're out of cigarettes, but we had a can of top rolling tobacco, and we're trying to smoke that on, like the paper on the outside of a toilet paper roll, not the toilet paper, but the packaging it comes in.
Yeah.
We were out of papers.
Yeah. So
we're trying to roll out of that. We're looking at papers, and we're like, oh, that was super gnarly. And then, we're going on 2 days now. No water and very little food. I don't know. Like, we're super dumb. And,
well, you guys were smart enough to stay in the same spot.
Yeah, we ain't going nowhere. Yeah, we're not going nowhere. And so we're just sitting there, and it's sunny, summer, July or something. We're out of bait, so we just cast our poles out and just put them in the rocks and just sit there and watch them. But, kings don't bite unless you got some eggs or something. There's just spin and glow on the end. And we're sitting there, and we still had ammo, and we had guns, and a duck flies over, and we're all, boom, and it's like Vietnam, and we're shooting at this duck, and he gets away, and then boom, a king jumps in the river, and we look, and my pole's gone, and he's jumping with a pixie in his mouth, or spin and glow. We just got done shooting at that duck. Run down there. Okay, when he jumps, shoot him. And we're all like, bomb, and that didn't work out that good. And then I grabbed somebody else's pole. I don't know if I grabbed Richie's or Nick's pole or whatever. And I cast it out, caught my line, grabbed my line, pulled my pole off the bottom of the river, and reeled in this 20, 30 pound king. We killed that bitch, and we were eating that salmon. And then we ate that salmon. It was like, man, we're eating good. And this is, don't ever drink all the water you got until the plane shows up. But anyways.
Pro tip.
Yeah, pro tip. And then Pat Solomon, he says, when the rain came up that first night, I don't think we got all that beer. And I'm like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah, come with me. And we walk down where the river is. And there's a huge rock about the size of a Volkswagen, and just on the other side of that rock, he's like, and Warsteiner's got that gold label on the top, that little gold header on the top there, and he's like, look at that little gold down there. And I'm like, oh, look at that gold, and I'm like, bam! I dive in the river, go down, come up. 2 Warsteiners, me and Pat, are over here.
2 beers?
2 beers. And, right or wrong, I come up with these 2 beers, and Pat looks at me, he's like, yeah. And this was after 2 days of no water, like, no guzzling water, like after a hockey game or something. And I look at Pat, and I look at the beers, and I look at the crew. There's 4 other motherfuckers over here. I guess I shouldn't have said that.
Oh, no, you can cuss.
Oh, is this explicit?
Yeah.
Oh, tight. And I go, and he looks at me, he's like, I just handed him one. I took one, we cracked it, and hid behind that rock and just slammed those beers. Oh, it was so good.
Yeah, I like how you guys hidden behind a rock.
Well, you don't want the other guys to see us drinking the beer. They didn't get no beer. We had 2. Deuce. Anyway, so the helicopter crash. Yeah, so I was the first guy to snowboard, I believe, off the top of Mount Spurr.
Wait, so that other story had nothing to do with the helicopter crash.
Yeah, I'm getting there. It's a long story.
Okay, go ahead.
That was pre-story. That's like a
Just to warm me up.
Yeah. And so we fly up by Lake Chamichataner and we get all in there and stuff. And we're like in the morning, like, okay, who wants to go? The pilot tells us, like, who wants to go first? And everybody's like, and they're all him-hawing around. And they're like, they nominate me. Jay will go first. I'm like, yeah, I'll go first. It's 10,000 feet. We're starting at 5 or 1,000. And we got to go up 10,000 feet and land. Nobody's ever been there. Pilot's not landed there. And he's like, I only want to take one person because I've never landed there. He doesn't know how sketchy it's going to be. And I'm like, okay, I'll go. And, we're back to the not so smart part of it. No shovel, no transceiver, nothing.
That was pretty normal back then, though.
Yeah.
To not have a peeps or a
Okay.
transceiver.
Okay, good. Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like it.
Okay, if everybody knows that, I don't have to explain it then. Good. We used to say, I'm riding my shovel. I'll dig you out with my snowboard. That's what we used to say. That's an old saying, old quote. Anyways.
And you'll dig the person out from an avalanche with your shovel.
Snowboard.
With your snowboard, okay.
I'm riding my shovel was the quote.
Okay.
Okay.
In what way? Can you explain riding my shovel?
I don't have a shovel. I'll dig you out with my snowboard.
Oh, I'm riding my shovel.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it. Yeah. I got it. A little slow to the draw there.
Anyways. Okay, I'll go first. Okay. We're choppering up, and I've never choppered up 10,000 feet. It took a while. It had to take 10 to 15 minutes or more to get up. And we come in, chopper, and land, boom, on the top of Mount Spurr. And I'm in the front, and I get out. I step on the skid, and then I step off, and boom, I go into a crevasse, but I hang on to the skid like I'm hanging on the ski of the helicopter. And I'm looking up at the back at the pilot, and he's like, he's fingering me like, oh, you want to get back in? And I'm like, no, I'm not getting back in. And I crawl out of that crevasse, and now I got to go around the front of the helicopter.
Wait, so you got out of the helicopter and you fell into a crevasse immediately?
Yeah, well, the first step, when you imagine stepping out of a helicopter, and then you're on snow. But then as soon as I stepped on the snow, boom, I fell into a crevasse, but I hung onto the ski of the helicopter. I'm hanging on by the ski, looking back up at the pilot, and he's notioning, oh, you want to get back in? And I'm shaking my head, no. And I crawl out, I hang on the skid, I crawl out of the crevasse, hanging on the helicopter. He's still just sitting there on top of Mount Spurr, and I have to walk around the front of the helicopter. Then I have to jump over the crevasse to get my snowboard off the other side. And so I walk around, I jump over, get my snowboard off, and you just give him the thumbs up, and he takes off. And then it all sets in on you when you see him go down and you can't see him anymore. And then it all sets in, and you're like, wow, now what did I get myself into? And you start thinking, you run the scenarios. What if the helicopter crash? How are they going to get me? It could be forever. I have nothing.
So you're kind of panicking.
Yeah, I was freaking out. Yeah, freaking out. And so in order to calm myself, I'm like, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to snowboard. I snowboarded off all 3 sides of that mountain and hiked back up before anybody else got up there.
Holy crap. How long was that?
I mean, I don't know.
How long did it take you to snowboard down, hike up, snowboard down?
We're not talking no vertical, like massive vertical. I'm talking like, 20 turns or something. I'm going to go down here, do some pow slashers and then hike back up and just keep my mind off where I was. And I'm like, okay, nobody's here. I'm going to go down this side and did that. And then I went off this side. We're talking only, maybe not vertical, but length, 500 feet or 800 feet.
Okay.
Like my driveway's 800 feet, 20 turns. And then somebody else come in and we did some filming, and we did this a couple times, and that was the very first time we snowboarded Mount Spurr. But I think it was the second season when, we never landed with a full helicopter on top, and we did some filming, and we ate lunch down low on the mountain, like the side that faces Anchorage. And the pilot says, we got enough fuel for one more lift. And when we thought he said one more lift, we thought he meant actually two, because we never landed with a full helicopter on top. But he says, no, one, everybody's going. Okay. And so we all pile in there, we're coming in.
And how many people is that?
5. It was me, Richie, the pilot, Pete, and Pat Solomon, the filmer. I can't remember Pete's last name. And I'm in the middle in the back. That's the best place. You want to be in the middle in the back. And so we're coming in to land, and when a helicopter comes in to land, when they get so far off, they start pulling a lot of power. They call it a flare, so they land soft. And there was a downdraft or something, and instead of slowing down to land, we didn't slow down at all. We hit the top of the mountain, and then you get all that power, and we went like this, and then you get the
backwards.
Yeah, we're like going backwards like this, kind of like, and then you get the adrenaline rush, which is great. Adrenaline. And I was thinking in my mind, I was like, wow, that was close. And we're going like this. The thing I didn't realize is once a helicopter can't fly, it takes like 200 feet for it to fly again to get air underneath its rotors. So we went, bam, we popped off the top, went flying sideways back, and we dropped like 200. There's a cauliflower wall on the west side of Mount Spurr on the top. There's a cauliflower wall to a big, huge glacier bowl. And we dropped that cauliflower wall, hit that glacier, spun over, rotors went flying. And, we stopped rolling. I'm in the middle in the back. The filmer's on this side. All I can see is his feet. He's underneath the helicopter. So I start trying to dig his feet out. And I'm like, oh, shit. I'm still strapped in like sideways on a helicopter. Diesel fuel, jet, whatever you want to call it. And he dug himself out. We all jumped out. We're running across the glacier like it's going to blow up, like the movies. And it didn't blow up. And we're like, okay, we gathered all our shit up, and damn, Farmer was there. I think Farmer was there. Who was there? Anyways, gather all our shit up. The pilot lost some of his toes. We're looking for some toes. And
how did he lose toes?
Well, when a helicopter crashes or rolls, the rotors flex and they'll come through the helicopter. They came through the front of the helicopter, cut his toes off. And they chopped my snowboard off. They cut snowboards clean, and then they came off the helicopter.
Holy crap.
The rotors are flexible, and if you flip a helicopter, the rotors are going to come through.
So they cut through the front of the helicopter.
Yeah, like if you're sitting like this and they flex, bam, there goes a few of your toes.
Yeah.
And so we're just a mess, and at the time, NASA was up there in the crater. It's a volcano testing the Dante robot they wanted to send to Mars. Mm-hmm. And we heard them on our talkabouts when we were filming on the other side of the mountain. And once again, they're like, we need to get NASA, radio NASA, we need to get NASA, we need help. And Jay, go over there. And I'm like, dude, this is a glacier. I'm like, if I walk over there and you can't see me and I fall in a crevasse, I'm done. Mm-hmm. I said, I'll hike over there as far as I can. But once I can't see you, I'm coming back. So I did that, come back, and I come back to the pilot, and he's all like, he's tripping out a little bit, and he's starting to go into shock, and he's like, find my backpack. And I'm like, okay. And I find his backpack, and he's like, there's a radio body in there. Just the body. The radio body. Not the battery or antenna. Just the body.
Mm-hmm.
Find my back. I find his backpack, and he's like, and it's all to him. I give all the credit to him. And he's all like, okay. And we had these Motorola radios we were filming with, and boom, the Motorola battery fit on his body. Bam. And he's all like, okay, take the antenna off the bottom of the helicopter. I take the antenna off the bottom of the helicopter, put it on this radio, turn it on. Mayday, mayday. I don't know if you ever call mayday, mayday, but mayday, what else are you going to say?
Yeah.
Mayday, mayday.
And you were the one to do this.
Yeah. Hello, this is Coast Guard, Kodiak Island. Hell yeah, we wrecked. How many? This many. Boom. And they sent in they're one of those big helicopters with the thing on the front. I don't know the name of them.
Blackhawks?
Yeah, like a Black Hawk. They sent in a Black Hawk, and they came through, and they looked at the situation, and they're like, this is crazy. We're not going to land there. And then they took off, and I guess they went and dumped all their fuel. They wanted to lighten up. And then they come back. They never landed. 2 EMTs jumped out. They never landed, and they came down to where we were, and they're like, okay, we're going to take the pilot out first. He's the most injured. They had one sled. The helicopter landed probably 1,000 feet below us on this glacier bowl. And, they landed down below us. And so their plan was, okay, we'll get the pilot and we'll sled him down to the helicopter. And then Richie broke his leg. He was sitting in the front. Like I say, you want to sit in the back, in the middle. Everything flies out and the front gets crushed. You look at an airplane wreck, the only thing left is the tail.
Yeah.
And so they're like, we're going to take the pilot down, then we're going to come back and get Richie. And Richie's all like, F that, Jay. Get me on a snowboard. I'm going. And so Richie's got a broken leg. I get him on the snowboard, and I got on my snowboard, and I kind of held on to him. And
you guys are sitting on the snowboard.
No, he's sitting on it. I'm on my snowboard, kind of hillside elevatoring,
Okay.
Kind of moderating his speed so he doesn't like getting crazy. And I hillside elevatored him down this glacier to the helicopter, and we got out of there, and boom. When you land at the hospital, they land at the hospital and taxied up to regional. You get out of the helicopter. Well, then it all hits you. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
We were just in a helicopter wreck, and I'm still here.
Probably didn't feel super real.
No, it didn't until you are back in Anchorage on dry ground.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of like, I need to do this, and then this is this, and this is the way it is.
Well, and being there at the hospital too, it seems like maybe like a moment of clarity. Like you realize your own mortality. Like that was some real shit we just went through.
Yeah. You look back and you're like, wow, is all this really worth it? And I'm like, all this stuff, helicopters and risking your life and stuff.
Did that kind of change how you snowboarded after that? Did you think more about kind of the consequences at all?
Well, it kind of ended my snowboard career because, I was paid to ride in helicopters, ride powder, jump cliffs, film, and I had a hard time riding in helicopters after that. It was ridiculous. I did ride in one twice, and on the second run, I broke my kneecap in half, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, that kind of ended the snowboarding thing, and I'm not a control freak, but when you're riding in something and somebody else is in control, I don't make good decisions all the time, but I trust my decisions most of the time. When you're relying on somebody else to make good decisions and trust their decisions, you're not in control. So I started snow machining after that.
So you were fully in control of the machine.
Yeah, I mean, I can judge this terrain, that, and my capabilities and make my own judgment.
That's interesting. I've never heard that perspective before because I always hear about just how crazy those Wild West days were, of, like I said earlier, being able to point at a line and being like, let's go hit that. And then here we are 20, 25 years later and still no one's ever done it because maybe it's unsafe terrain or whatever, right? And so to have you go through something like that that's so traumatic and then make such a, in my opinion, a level-headed decision to be like, all right, maybe we don't do this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I look at things and make decisions maybe a little differently than other people. And also, right after that, I mean, snow machining blew up. It was ridiculous. And so I still snowboarded and snow machine, but it was like when we say, here's snowboarding, and then here comes snowmobiling. Right behind that, kind of, the freestyle turning and hardcore and cold smoke and sled necks. That came right after snowboarding.
Mm-hmm.
I was right in the thick of that. And so, but, I wasn't going to lay down. I had to do something. And it's just another thing to ride and make pow tippers.
Yeah, pow tippers.
Pow tippers.
Tell me a little bit about your snow machine days. I haven't really heard too much about that. I know that you were or still are like big into it, and all those like snow machine heads, they all know you.
Well, so the guy Pat Solomon, I was trying to dig out of the helicopter, that the camera guy had a camera bag on his chest, like a 16 mil Aeroflex,
Yeah.
And he was underneath the copter when we crashed. I was trying to, he filmed as a freelancer the majority of the first Crusty Demons of Dirt.
Nice.
And then those dudes, I can't remember their names. But anyways, he's seen like Krusty's blew up. That was the original like freestyle motocross flick. Pat filmed most of it. And he's like, well, they're killing it. I'm going to make my own movie. And Pat starts filming his own movie called Organ Donors. And Organ Donors was freestyle motocross. He threw it all in there. Four-wheelers, jet skis, and snowmobiling. And he calls me. He's like, you snowmobiling? I'm like, yeah, let's come on up. Let's go. And he comes up and we film a bunch of snowmobiling. I don't know if this was 1 or 2 years later. It was ridiculous. And we're like up at Turnagain, just jumping off cornices and going to Arctic Man and just crushing it. And that movie came out, Organ Donors. Then boom, these other dudes, the the Crusty guys, I can't remember his name. And Aaron Von Hessinger from Two Stroke, and the Slednecks guys, the guys that started Krusty, started Slednecks, they all call me the next year. Because they're, in California, everybody knows every other filmer. And they're like, who do I call? They all call me. Oh, yeah, come on up. And so the next year, here comes Two Stroke Cold Smoke. Here comes Slednecks. And, I'm not the best snowmobiler and this and that. But I was in a few of those movies. And they were the first ones. Again, the first ones. And it was a lot of fun, Yeah, those are fun days.
That's what's up, Jay. So, I guess to switch gears a little here, I asked my dad, your brother, Scott Liska, this question on his podcast, but I wanted to know your perspective. So, how did Boarderline get started? For the listeners who don't know what Boarderline is, it was an Alaska snow and skate shop back in the late 80s, 90s, and early 2000s.
I mean, so I did teach my brother Scott how to snowboard, and that one day in Valdez, that started Boarderline. But I did try to teach him one time before that.
Really?
Yeah, we went up to Arctic Valley in the summer and hiked up to the top. There was only snow on the glacier. And this was my very first snowboard, too. No high backs. It was a flight rocket. I don't know if anybody remembers a flight rocket, but I did a little run on the cornice. And then I'm like, here, you try it. And he's all like, no high backs, fast techs for buying, it was just ridiculous. But he's all like, this sucks. This is a fad. This is going to fade. This is lame.
Uh-huh.
Okay, yeah, and that was actually the first time he tried it. And like I said, when we went to Valdez, we're both electricians, and it was his idea. He comes to me and he says, I heard there's a road shot in Valdez, and we go check it out. And so we went down there, and Jake was there, Cooper Gordon, a friend of mine named Chet, and Scott. And the first day he was wearing that Descent one piece, and he had those tiger vocal tigers. He bought some stuff from Rennie out at World Cup out in Girdwood. He bought his stuff from Rennie, and he was trying to ski, and it was 2 feet. It was corny, a couple feet of corny, and he was struggling. By the end of the day, he was just driving the van. He's like, I don't even want to ski. And then we went to the Pipeline Club that night, had some steaks, some drinks, and I had 2 boards. I had just bought the first Craig Kelly.
Really?
The first pro model Craig Kelly, the one with all this sketchy looking orange stuff on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my other board, which was a Sims half pipe. And I said, I got 2 boards. I mean, you need to try snowboarding tomorrow. And so the next day, he went up and he killed it. I mean, you watch that video and I was all like, people don't do that. And he's making turns and loving it. And
Lincoln turns his first time.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Just, pow turns and love it and just not struggling, not heel sided and bow winkling and all this other crap. And so, we get done with that. And, it's a 6-hour ride back to Anchorage. And on the way back, like he said, and he's like, man, we need to invest some money in this snowboarding crap. This is going to blow up. And so the idea was invest all our money in Burton Snowboards, which it's privately owned and you can't buy stock in that. And so you couldn't buy stock in any snowboard company in 89 or 90. So the next one was, well, we'll just open a snowboard shop. And, we said, okay. And so I don't think I thought up the name Boarderline. I think I might have seen it somewhere.
I've always heard that it came from that Madonna song.
It could have. I'm not sure where it came from. That's a good point.
Yeah, it could just be hearsay. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And then, we started Boarderline in 89 or whatever, and that was pretty good stuff.
And so the very first Boarderline, the one on Arctic Boulevard, was broken into at one point, right?
Yeah.
And
oh, yeah.
someone rammed their car into it.
Right. During a blackout.
Do you remember that story?
Yeah, I do. That's a good story, too. That was awesome. Let's see if I can tell that one. Okay. So the store got broken into. It was a blackout. Somebody smashed their car in there. And they stole a bunch of skateboard stuff. Right? Anchorage is not that big. And so we had that skate park going out back at the same time. Every skater in Anchorage was coming to skate the park or around that vicinity. And so we were talking to the kids. We're doing some Magnum PI crap or Columbo. And we get this one kid. He's like, yeah, I know where your stuff's at and blah, blah, blah. He's like, okay. And I'm like, well, what's it going to take? And we're like, well, he's like, yeah, give me a deck. And I'm like, okay, here's a deck. And he's like, okay, your stuff's right here. And I'm like, okay. And so me and Scott come up with this idea. Like, okay, they're going to be hungover or whatever, Saturday or Sunday morning. And we paid this kid some more money to knock on the door, too. So we'll go there Sunday morning early, like about 8 or whatever, 6-ish or something. And we'll have the kid knock on the door. And then we'll just bust in there and find her stuff. That was our plan. And so we show up. We're there. It's in Fairview. And there's some windows. And so I'm like, okay, I'll hang out on the corner here. And your brother goes over here next to the door.
Dad.
Yeah, Dad. Scott.
Yeah.
Scott goes over here next to the door. And he's like, over here. And then we have the kid knock on the door. So they'll open it, right? Kid knocks on the door. Knocking on the door. Just then, I'm standing in Fairview, leaning up against the wall like this, kind of looking around the corner. A cop starts driving by. And he's all looking at me in Fairview, and I'm all slimmed up against the wall, and he just pulls right in the driveway. And then the kids open up the door, and Scott, your brother, my brother Scott goes running in there. He might have slapped a few kids around, opens up this closet. Boom, full of skateboard stuff. Meanwhile, I'm outside and the cop's like, what's going on? And I'm like, well, we own a skate shop, and these kids supposedly stole all our crap.
You
and
spilled the beans.
well, dude, he's about ready to cuff me or something. I'm looking shady in Fairview. And here's all, we think they sold, this is where the stuff is. And he's like, oh, it's the case number. We're like, oh, here's the case number. And he's like, and then your dad comes out, Scott, and he's like, it's all right there. And the cop's like, oh, good, right on. He's like, man, it's a good thing you guys did this, because if you told us, we would have just screwed it up. And I was like, here you go. So yeah,
that's what the cop said.
Yeah, that's what the cop said. He's like, you guys killed it. We would have fucked this up.
So at one point, you and my dad split. He kept on the Boarderline, and you started Northern Border. And do you remember kind of why you guys split?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super organized, but I kind of try to keep my ducks in a pretty good row. And then maybe Scott, he might be, his ducks might be in a little wider row. And so we didn't see eye to eye, and so we split the partnership. I mean, it really came down to that. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been in a partnership, but they're rare that they work out. It's kind of, it wasn't like bad blood or hard feelings or anything. It was just, yeah, it sounds a good idea.
Yeah, I know that whenever people would come into Boarderline and say we didn't have something, or vice versa, they'd go into Northern Border. We'd be like, oh yeah, go check out Northern Border, or go check out Boarderline. They'll probably have it. So
yeah, no, it wasn't like any, we weren't mad at each other. It was just like, okay, well, we're not seeing eye to eye. Maybe we'll try something different.
Yeah. So in a lot of ways, style and fashion have come full circle in snowboarding. Maybe not when you're talking about kind of competition riders, but definitely when we're talking about a lot of riders who focus on filming video parts. So you can see it in them getting back into 90s fashion and their riding style with the attention to carving and kind of individual style. Why do you think that is?
That's a good, interesting question. I mean, maybe partially, they look up to some of these styles or aspects of snowboarding. Like, I mean, I still, the guys I look up to from, 85, Steve Graham and Farmer and we'll just take Steve Graham, for instance. He would do this certain trick, and I want to do that trick. And so maybe a little bit of it comes from that. And then with the internet, everybody knows everything so much.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's aware of everything.
Yeah.
It's hard to pull off something nobody's aware of. So if you dive back and go, oh, I'm going to pull this crap back and bring it up, younger generations might not have seen this stuff, might not know this stuff. It's not new. It's just new again.
Exactly. Yeah, new again. I was actually just about to say that.
Yeah.
Also, I think that it probably has a little to do with snowboarding is progressing in a direction that's more of the same. So you remember back in like the early 2000s when you just added another spin on, another 180, and then it just kept going, another 180, another 180, another 180. Now it's do another cork, and so it's a lot of the same. Whereas if you look back to those older videos like Project 6, right? You remember that? You were in that video.
Yeah.
And so I actually rewatched that recently, and that's where I came up with that question. I was like, all of this stuff in this video looks like what is hot right now in snowboarding, in filming, the filming aspect of snowboarding, which I thought was super interesting. Mm-hmm. Like that movie is 100% watchable nowadays. Like you could watch that movie before you go to the mountain, to get hyped to go snowboard.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, I know. And they don't, what just kills me, and Project 6 is awesome. There's not much talking in it. These Red Bull documentaries where we struggled so hard to get to the surf or to the spot, and it was just a struggle. I don't turn on the TV to listen to somebody tell their story on how hard it was to get to do something. I just want to see the action. I want to see hammer after hammer after hammer. And that's Project 6. It's like Jamie Lynn, bam, bam, bam. We're killing this. And Rippy, like, oh, I'm going to do some crap and all that, The videos and stuff today, it's a bunch of junk.
A bunch of junk. Well, I think the experience is different as well. Like when you're talking about those Red Bull documentaries, they're more like cinematic. Whereas I think that Project 6 was more about this is a straight up snowboard video. You were watching a snowboard video to watch people snowboard, not to be able to be played at a movie theater and the person who's not into snowboarding be able to follow, the story.
Now the Red Bull crap's like 60 minutes. It's ridiculous. And then they review some crap. It's like, oh, I had to ride a 4-wheeler for this far to get to the surf spot. You already told me that. I want to hear that. Let's see some ripping.
The ratio's just all off.
Yeah.
So what was it like filming for Project 6?
I mean, we dictated the whole thing. It's like, okay, we're going to go here and do this. We're going to go here and do that. Let's go to Liska and do a switch triple poke over the cat track. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, and let's hit this and hit that. And, it was non-scripted. There was no storyline. I mean, you'd tell the filmer, oh, I'm going to hit that right there, and then you'd hit it. There was no direction, so it quite possibly didn't turn out the best. And it was limited what we were trying to do compared to what you can do in a closed area, a snowboard park or whatever. It's hard to stack footy in the backcountry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can go to a snowboard park and jib a barrel, and if you're good, you can throw down, a couple hammers in an hour, where if you're in the backcountry, it's difficult. So, unstructured, I'd say.
So now that you're older and able to look back, are you surprised by anything, maybe by how things turned out?
Well, I'd say when you get older, you wish you would have listened to other people and actually realize what was going on around you. There was a lot of situations or opportunities where maybe I could have capitalized more on or not, but maybe I was wound up in the moment and just doing it. And then the advice is people will say things to you, but you won't even realize what they're saying, Like when my brother, tells that story about me getting caught in that avalanche and getting buried, and then I ride out the end, So the helicopter flew in Doug Coombs, which is a legendary big mountain skier, and Rito Lamb and some other dudes, and they were shooting some stuff for Fire and Ice. They were Europeans, and they landed on the Berlin. They landed and then walked out to the Berlin Wall. They were a ways ahead of us. And then we came in on the second chopper and landed, and I'd seen this little chute over here, and I'm like, well, everybody else is like, we're going to drop in here. And I'm like, I'm going to go over here and hit this chute. And so I walked down the ridge about halfway between the LZ landing pad and Doug Coombs. And Doug Coombs says to me, hey, we just drove in there that night. We drive in, leave town, Anchorage, Friday night. We're in there Saturday morning. We probably slept in the car or wherever in the snowbank. And this is the first run of the morning. And Doug Coombs says to me, I'm taking a leak, and Doug Coombs says, hey, it snowed a foot last night. He's not close to me. He's probably 300 feet away. And he just yells at me, "Hey, it snowed a foot last night." And so I'm super dumb or not smart or whatever. Didn't know all that. Well, when somebody says that to you, it means, hey, 75% of the avalanches happen within the first 24 hours of a snowfall. He didn't tell me that. He thought I knew that. But that's what he was trying to tell me. I didn't have a clue. Dropped in, did one turn, did another turn, and then I see at the bottom of the run, probably 1,000 feet below me, where the Bergstrom crack is, where the mountain ends and the glacier starts. I see the snow shooting up like a big snow geyser, just shooting straight up. And I'm like, whoa, I never seen that before. And I look over to the rocks and I realize all the snow I'm moving on or riding on is moving. And I'm like, oh, crap. We're talking maybe a few seconds of thinking and maneuvering. I'm like, oh, crap. I'm making one turn and I'm riding into those rocks and I'm going to try and hang on to the rocks. And by the time I made that thought and did like a half a turn, the snow had accelerated to as fast as I was going. So I plopped in up to my knees. I'm still standing up, going straight down the mountain on my snowboard, and the snow comes up like duck diving a wave. It comes up, goes over my head. So I stick my hand up, and I'm looking, and I'm like, this is bad. And I'm still going down the mountain, standing up on my snowboard, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? My first thing was, start clearing the snow away from your face. So I start clearing the snow away from I'm pushing the snow away from my face. And then it goes down and it hits the glacier and then it spreads out. And then it's like duck diving away. The snow came down off me, came down to my knees. I did a forward roll and rolled out the end. But, yeah, think about what people say to you. They're trying to teach you something, but you got to realize what they're saying.
Yeah. Holy shit. Yeah, it's interesting to hear your perspective of that story because my dad just told that story on his podcast.
Yeah.
So we have the perspective from the bottom of it, and now we have a perspective from you being in it.
Yeah.
You know, during that time, it seems like you guys were all chasing a sense of adventure. Has anything changed, or do you feel like you're still chasing that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I like that one. So, when you get older, you start realizing, like, I guess I can only speak for myself, is I look back at my life and I'm like, how did this all start? And I'm like, okay, I'm young, 8, 5. And we're just crazy over in Spinard, you know, just out of control. And then BMX was a big deal, you know, BMX, you know, and okay, we're BMXing, and then, you know, you hurt yourself a lot, and then we went to skiing, we're just like, you know, Wayne Wong, Twister Daffy spreads and all that crap, and then snowboarding, and then I went to snow machining, and then it's just one thing after another. Boom, 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 boom. And then you get about 40, and you're like, okay, no thing actually makes you happy. I mean, I do all these things. Why am I doing all these things? You know, I did this, and I started thinking about it. I'm like, okay, well, why am I doing this? And I'm like, oh, well, I guess when somebody says that's cool or gives you attention, it makes you feel good. I'm like, oh, yeah. Or if you hurt yourself and you have to tell the story, that makes you feel good too. The only thing on everybody's mind is themselves. Rarely anybody can think of anything but themselves. So I realized when I was 40 or something, like, why do I keep doing all these things? And so now I'm looking at, I'm like, okay, I want to do this. And then I think, why do I want to do this? Is it for attention? What do you got to prove? or, so to answer your question is yes, that you get older and you start to try and figure out why you're doing things. Why does no thing make me happy? It's because no thing can.
So nothing makes you happy?
No, it can make you happy, but it's not like forever, or it's not lasting. So if there was a product that could make you happy, everybody would buy it and everybody would be happy forever. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
People go through products, buying things, shopping, snowboarding, skating, because it makes them happy. When somebody says, "Oh, Cody, man, that was a sick front board, blah, blah, blah," bam, little adrenaline rush or little dopamine, bam, I feel good. And then you don't really realize it at the time, the dopamine, oh, I got to do that again. And then you do snowboarding, and I can do a front board, and I'm cool, and everybody likes my front board, I'm going to do a front board. But it doesn't last forever. So you got to come up with some other crap after that. I need to do switch nose press. And so that's just like snowboarding. But then some people look at it as purchasing, or, oh, I need a diesel, a Dodge diesel, and I need a 4-place enclosed, and I need a Cyber Turbo on my 850, and then I'll be cool, and I'll get that dopamine rush. And it's like, dude, it's not going to last. No thing, like I said, it's weird. It makes you happy for a little while, but it don't last. So you got to keep repeating, and you get older, and I'm like, why do I keep doing all these things? I keep one thing after another. I'm like, this is crazy.
So after you realized it was crazy, did you find out what actually made you happy?
Well, I ain't quite. Yeah, right. I nailed that one. If I nailed that one down, I wouldn't even be here. I'd be like, bam.
This isn't making you happy?
No, I love this, but I haven't. I think I know. I don't think I'm gonna say it. I can't describe it. It's weird, but okay. I grew up no internet, right? I had like 5 bros in the trailer court. And you don't realize you're trailer trash till you're about 40 and somebody tells you you realize, oh, I was trailer trash. And so I grew up before the internet, before all this stuff. And so awareness creates discontentment, right? You know that concept?
Yeah. The more you know, the less happy you are.
Yeah, exactly. Awareness creates discontentment. So when I say, oh, I was trailer trash, I didn't realize that at the time I was in the trailer. I was loving it. I'm the crew, and this and that. But then, when you get to 40, you're like, oh, I guess I was trailer trash. So I was aware of that, and I was maybe a little discontent. Mm-hmm. So there you go. And no, I'm trying to slow down and do things that are, when you get older, that are kind of timeless. And you look at the old phrases and quotes that people made, and you start to realize, you reap what you sow. What does that mean? You reap what you sow. And so I look at that and I'm like, I abuse my body for 53 years now, and I'm getting ready to reap what I sowed. And so I've been, everything's wearing out. I need to exercise. Your mind, you need to exercise your mind, your eyes, everything. You're losing it. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's what I'm looking at.
It seems like maybe what you're saying is being more aware of the reality of situations instead of trying to chase superficial things. Things like, the diesel, the feeling you get when you do a trick or you do a heli line, and it is the reaction from others that gives you that satisfaction rather than being satisfied with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And you know what it really comes down to is charity and volunteering.
So, after all this, you've realized that community, philanthropy, humanity, and caring about your fellow man, your neighbor, those are the things that are important.
Yeah. You know, I was not reading a book. I didn't read that book. Maybe someday I'll read that book. I've been reading a little bit more lately, but...
What book are you talking about?
Oh, shoot. I don't know the name of it. But the point of it was this lady, she was a hospice nurse. I don't know if I told you this or not. And she started interviewing the hospice nurse. People are dying, and she started interviewing them on their regrets from their life. Old people. Number one regret from men, wish I didn't work so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Number one regret from both women and men, I wish I would have lived my life by my own standards and not other people's. So I'm getting old. I'm looking at this like, well, kind of don't work so hard, but and maybe I don't live my life by other people's standards. But, you know, you look at these things. You don't look at them when you're young. It's like, wow, I don't care about that. But
too busy living life.
Too busy living life. Yeah. And so, yeah, so you sort of, what you said, the community, volunteering and all that, that's where it kind of really is at.
Well, that's awesome. That's a good place to be at.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being on the show, Jay.
Yeah, buddy.
This has been awesome. Thanks for chatting with me.
Boy. I'll have to review the edit.
You can support local grassroots journalism at patreon.com/Crude Magazine. If you're not familiar with Patreon, it's a platform that makes it easy for you to support content that matters to our community for as little as $1 a month. Crude Conversations is written, hosted, and produced by me, Cody Liska, for Crude Magazine. Intro music was produced by Alcoda Beats.